Great, thank you everyone for coming. So just a show of hands, who's from the social casino niche in some way or another, or is familiar with the niche? Okay, that's most of the room, that's great, okay, good. Okay, so for those who don't know me, I'm Elad Kushnir, I'm the Vice President of Business Development at Playtika. Playtika is one of the largest, if not the largest, social casino gaming company in the world. I'm going to talk today about the state of the social casino industry. It's quite a young industry. I gave a similar lecture back in Amsterdam in February, and this is kind of an update, so whoever hasn't seen that one, this should be a good way to catch up. Okay, so a little bit about the company. Company was founded in 2010. We're a multi-platform social games developer. We have 9 games. We're on 12 platforms. We're one of the only social casino companies in the world that can say that. Other than Facebook, iOS, and Android, we're on additional 9 additional platforms. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. We're headquartered out of Tel Aviv, and we have offices around the globe these days: US, Canada, Ukraine, Belarus, Romania, and Argentina, and we've grown to about 750 people in 4 years. Quite a feat, and we're trying to manage the growth as well as we can. Okay, there we go. Okay, so a little bit about the evolution of our studios. So Playtika was founded in 2010, and in 2011 was acquired by Caesars Interactive Entertainment. Since then, one of the ways that we've grown is that we've acquired additional studios around the globe. In 2012, we acquired Buffalo Studios, now Playtika US. In 2013, we acquired the WSOP poker app from EA. That's a team out of Canada. And now in February, recently, we acquired Pacific Interactive, which is the team behind House of Fun. We'll talk a little bit about the M&As and why we've acquired these companies later on. Okay, a little bit about our numbers. We've grown pretty quickly since 2010. Last year, we generated $302 million of revenue, $115 million just in Q1. We have, as of Q1 this year, we have 5.7 million DAO and 19.7 million MAU. A 24-cent DARPU, which is quite high, I think one of the highest in the industry. 51% of our revenues are from mobile as of Q1, and 70% of our revenues are from North America. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the industry. And since we're sitting here in the main track and kind of the industry's insights track, what I did was I wanted to give a little bit of background about social casino and kind of the history and why it's a little different than all the other gaming categories, and it has its own unique characteristics. So we're going to talk about social casino in the casino industry context. So a very brief history. Games of chance have been being played since the dawn of time. First slot machine was invented in the 1800s, in the late 1800s. And in their modern format, the casinos that most of you know today have been existing since the 1930s in the US. The reason that's relevant, the reason I'm giving you this context is that social casino is somewhat of a spin-off of the casino industry. And that's important for everybody to understand because the market forces that apply to our niche are somewhat interrelated into the casino industry. We'll talk about that later as well. So another important thing is that social casino did not invent casino games. Okay, everybody obviously knows that. We didn't invent slots, we didn't invent poker, we didn't invent bingo, but the innovation of social casino was to bring these games into a non-gambling environment. We are a completely free-to-play company. We are not a gambling company at all. We are much more of a king.com than a real money gambling company or a casino in that sense. A little bit about social casino in the gaming industry context. So social casino in terms of a category versus other categories. So what you see on the screen, iPhone, iPad, and Android, we generate between 7 and 14% of all revenues generated on these platforms are generated from our niche. We are in the nice position to be the company generating most of those revenues, or a large part of those revenues. And so social casino is one of the most lucrative gaming categories in the world. A little bit about the market size. So in 2010, there was no social casino industry. There were no revenues whatsoever. As you can see on the slide, The market has grown amazingly. In 2014, it's projected that we're going to generate $2.6 billion of revenue. Considering that we generated zero 4 years ago, that blows my mind. I think it should yours as well. And we will be generating 11% of all revenues of social and mobile gaming revenue globally. So again, it's quite a lucrative niche, but it's also quite a complex one. Okay, so this is one of the most important slides in the presentation, and if there's one slide I want you to focus on, it's this one. So social casino, like I said before, is an offshoot of the old casino industry. And because of that, there are different types of companies that play in this niche or in this category. First and foremost, we have the offline slot manufacturers. So remember, we didn't invent slot machines. Slot machines have been around for a long time. They're big name companies like IGT, which was acquired a week ago by G-Tech, Bally's, Aristocrat out of Australia, High Five Games, and WMS. These are the actual companies that are creating and manufacturing the slot machines on the casino floor. So when you walk into a casino and you play a slot machine, the probability that one of these companies manufacture the machine is very high. Obviously, these are not all the companies. I'm just showing you some examples and some of the big names that you might know. The second type of company that's playing in the category are offline casino operators. Our parent company, Caesars. Who here has heard of Caesars Palace? Raise your hand. Okay, so that'll prove my point a little later on. So Caesars Interactive Entertainment, which is a subsidiary of CE, acquired us in 2010. We fall into that category today because we were acquired by Caesars. MGM Resorts, Rush Street, and a few of the other names you see on there are people who are now playing in the social casino industry. Then we have the online real money gaming guys. So online real money gaming is pretty new in the US, just started off a few months ago. But in Europe, it's a very mature industry. Companies like 888, Gamesys, bwin, Novomatic, these are all monsters of companies making a lot of money who are essentially creating games for real money gambling online. Last but not least is what we consider the purely social category, which are essentially all of you guys or most of you guys, people who came to Casual Connect. These are companies like Zynga, like Big Fish, like Boya, and these are companies that were born in the social gaming side of the business. Okay, so why is it relevant to categorize the companies in this way? One of the main reasons is that each type of company here has a different type of competitive advantage in the social casino niche. The offline slot manufacturers, their competitive advantage is proven content. So one of the things you'll see, and if you're going to listen to the lectures in the social casino track, you'll see some people talking about this specific subject, is the fact that these slot manufacturers have been working on slots for many years. So when they create a machine, they put it on the casino floor. Some of them work, some of them don't, just like any other game, right? But what they're doing is that they're taking the games that worked offline and essentially moving them into the social casino side of the business. And so essentially they have years and years of game portfolios and successful game portfolios that they can take from the offline world, put them into their game. A great example of this is Double Down, probably our most prominent competitor, who was acquired by IGT, essentially taking the games of IGT from the casino floor, putting them onto social casino games. Offline casino operators. So the offline casino operators have a distinct advantage in brand recognition. When I asked who heard of Caesars Palace, most of you raised your hand. So brand recognition is a very important part of the competitive advantage. When we launched our Caesar Slots game, one of the reasons we were able to push it really hard was because of the brand name. The second theoretical advantage, which hasn't been proven yet to date, is cross-promotion. The people going into the casinos are potential clients for social casino games. That's another big potential in the market and a hypothetical competitive advantage. Okay, online real money gaming, that's actually a pretty interesting part of the story. So these guys have digital casino gaming experience. They've been online with casino games for over a decade. Some of these companies are literally over a decade. The interesting part is that they haven't really succeeded in social casino yet. There's a whole debate in the industry as to why, but I'll claim that what they tried to do initially was take their real money gaming games and put them into a social context, and it's substantially more complex than that. And it's about being more of a social gaming company than a casino company, and they came from the perspective of being a casino company. The purely social companies, their competitive advantage is agility, regional focus, and social and mobile experience. So companies like Zynga, who were and still are very prominent in the industry, they have a lot of experience on social and mobile. That's their competitive advantage in the niche specifically. Regional focus, some of these companies have a strategy of approaching social casino from a regional perspective. Who here has heard of Boya? Can you raise your hand? Okay, so let's say about a third of the people. Boya is a very large social casino company based out of China, doing a great poker product, generating over $100 million a year. They're a large company. Not many people know of them, but they have a regional strategy. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the pyramid structure of the industry and who's who. On the top of the category, Playtika with 22% of the market share. So 22% of all revenues generated in the social casino niche are generated by us. There are 4 other companies that we consider in tier 1. I think each one of them has a representative here. Big Fish, IGT with Double Down, Zynga with Zynga Poker, and GSN actually moved into the top tier in our eyes with their acquisition of Bash Gaming recently, and we'll talk about that a little later on. So each of these companies, the reason we categorize them in tier 1 is that each of them has 5% market share or up. And that's what we consider tier 1. Tier 2, there's a whole slew of companies in tier 2. I might have missed 1 or 2, but I'm not sure. Dragonplay, Play Studios, W Casino out of Korea, WMS, High Five Games, and Boya. So if you look at this, tier 1 and tier 2 own about 70% of the market. So it's quite a tough market in that sense. If you're a younger company trying to break into this industry, it's quite a complex industry. Not impossible, but quite hard. So the rest of the companies, I put a whole list of companies on the presentation. There are hundreds and hundreds of more games in the niche. And that's important to understand because it's quite a saturated niche. In terms of the amount of games out there. To be able to differentiate yourself and move up into second or first tier is quite a challenge, and you have to have a serious competitive advantage or do something hyper unique. Doesn't mean that the gaming companies down there aren't going to succeed. They are succeeding. There are some companies here that are generating tens of millions of dollars a year in tier 3. So I'm not trying to kind of push you out of the niche. I'm just trying to explain the scale. Okay, so we're going to talk about 3 main growth drivers in the industry. And we're going to start with a mobile growth driver. Sorry, that's an animation mistake. Okay, so we're going to talk about mobile. Everybody knows that mobile is the largest growth driver in the entire social gaming industry, not necessarily social casino. If you look at the slide on the left, what you'll see there is a visualization of sales of PC. If you look at the bottom part of the red is PCs, the blue are smartphones, and the orange are tablets. And you'll see that where the growth is coming from is very obvious. That's mobile. We feel that every day, and we'll talk about that in the next slide. So next slide, we're talking about social casino revenues in Q2 2014. So mobile, when we launched the company 4 years ago, we were a Facebook-driven company. Much of our revenues came from Facebook. Today, a lot of our revenues still do, but something happened over the last 2 quarters that has tipped us into becoming a mobile-first company. Growth is coming out of mobile. iOS and Android is growing very quickly. Our estimation is that 53% of revenues in the entire category as of today are coming out of mobile. And that's a big shift in the mindset of the niche, and for us as a company specifically, we are formally a mobile-first company, and that really changes a lot of things internally. I'm assuming most of you understand that it's different tech teams, different marketing teams, different type of knowledge. But the niche has definitely gone mobile, and that's definitely the largest growth driver right now. Okay, the second growth driver is regional growth. So 70% of our revenues come from English-speaking markets. This is true for the entire niche. That's US, Canada, Australia are generating 70% of the revenue. There's still a lot of room for growth in the non-English speaking markets. We'll talk about that right now. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about regional growth. This is relevant also for people who aren't in the social casino niche, just in the social gaming niche. But if you look at the slide up there, what you're seeing is the projected amount of smartphones that are going to be sold from 2013 to 2019. And if you look, there's some very obvious trends going on. Latin America, EMEA, and Asia Pacific. If you look, North America is going to sell approximately 110 million mobile phones over the next 5 years, where in Asia Pacific it's above 2 billion. If that's not a trend, I don't know what a trend is, and that's definitely a growth driver. Whoever's in the gaming industry should be looking at these emerging markets, and it's very important. Asia is by definition a place to be and a place to look. Nobody has really cracked the Asian social casino niche. If you think you have, please come up to me. We want to buy you. Okay, so I want to give some context. Offline casino revenues. So what you're seeing here are real money casinos, the type you walk into and actually gamble. And the reason I want to show you this visualization is in order to give you some context of where the money is. If you look, you see Macau generated $44 billion of revenue in 2013 versus Vegas, 6.3. It almost makes Vegas feel like a fly on the wall. And the industry is actually not in Vegas anymore. And if you add Macau, Singapore, Philippines, etc., you'll see that the industry is actually the real gambling industry is coming out of Asia. And that, for us, means that there's a lot of potential in social gaming and in social casino. And we're definitely focused on that. Casino revenues from Asia are mind-blowing, and we think it's only the start. So we're going to talk a little bit more about regional growth. Okay, so one of the trends that we're seeing and we're liking is local games for local markets. So the reason slots and bingo and poker are generating so much money in the English-speaking markets because these are games that were generated or invented in the West. These slots are a local game for a local market, and that's why they're succeeding so well in the English-speaking markets. But in every country, there's some type of chance game being played or a card game. And we're seeing a real trend of companies that are taking a regional strategy with local games from local markets. Akamon is a pretty famous one. Some of you may know them from Casual Connect. They're doing Latin America or Spanish-speaking social casino. Sega Sammy out of Japan doing a pachinko-style social casino game. PlaySpace, another company I like very much, out of Spain, doing Latin America social casino. And Octro is actually an interesting story. So Octro is a company that I learned that exists only a few months ago. Octro is a company behind a product called Teen Patti. Who's heard of Teen Patti? Can you raise your hand? Okay, so not many of you, which I think is normal. Octro, so there's a game out of India called Teen Patti, played by a lot of Indians offline, and until now, nobody's really taken it into the social casino category. A few months ago, we tracked the app ranks across the globe all the time. We realized that there's this game called Teen Patti that's blowing the ranks. I think they've hit about 7 million MAU in a few months. And the reason is that because they've approached a market that had a vacuum, nobody was playing there, nobody fulfilled the needs of the local market, and Octo 3 went from 0 to 7 million MAU, and I think they raised $15 million from Sequoia a few months after they launched their launch their product. So this is a trend. It's relevant. Again, if you have one of these games and you think and you've already scaled, please come talk to me. Okay, and then I'm gonna do the push Asia one more time so to make sure nobody forgets this part. So what you see up here is a visualization of total gaming revenue by region. This is not social casino, this is gaming in general. If you look on the right side, I don't know if you can see it, but Asia will generate $36 billion of gaming revenue this year versus North America, which is 21. So Asia is already the largest gaming industry in the world, gaming region in the world. Japan, for those of you who track the industry, know that in terms of mobile, Japan's already generating more mobile revenue on iOS and Android than the US. It's 127 million population in Japan versus 350 million population, and they're already generating more money in mobile gaming than in the US. That's quite amazing in my eyes. And then China will generate $17 billion of revenue. China's a whole very complex market, very different than our Western gaming market, but nobody can ignore Asia. Okay, last in terms of growth drivers, growth via optimization. And I thought about this slide a lot, and it's actually a lecture within itself, so I'm not gonna jump right into the details, but I'm gonna give you kind of the overview. So the lowest hanging fruit of growth is actually in your game. And this is true for the entire free-to-play industry. Some of the companies that you guys work in are converting 3 to, let's say, 10% if you're doing very well of your users. There are still 90% of your users that you haven't converted, but they are the most likely paying customers that you might have. They're engaged in the game, they're playing it, they're there for a reason. Now all you have to do is convince them to pay. And there are 3 trends that we see going on in the industry, and this is true for the entire gaming industry, but maybe for social casino more than others. First and foremost is segmentation. So not all players are made alike. And what we're trying to do and what the industry is trying to do is to segment the users into groups and say, okay, these are the type of people that want to play this type of game or this type of slot machine and not this type of slot machine. And there's a whole world that can go into segmentation. Personalization. So we dream of a world where every person gets treated the way they would like in the game. So if we're playing the same type of game, we're playing the same actual game, I might have a different gaming experience, you might have a different gaming experience. And this is obviously technologically driven, but at the end of the day, these are the things that are gonna increase your conversion rate. These are the things that are gonna increase your optimization, and this lowest hanging fruit is really where you should be focusing your time, especially if you've scaled already. Last but not least, AI and big data. So those are big words, and we're not going to talk about them right now. But there's a lot of room for innovation with big data in social casino and in social gaming in general. And we feel that this is something that every company should be looking into. There's some great third-party providers that you should be looking into. Some of them are here at Casual Connect that offer segmentation services and big data services that'll help you kind of personalize a game and segment your users. Okay, so this is one of the trends that I actually, in my lecture in February, I said, this won't happen. I was wrong. And it did happen, and I think it's a very interesting trend, and this is the emergence of a B2B side of the business. So remember, in the beginning of the lecture, we talked about the fact that social casino is a spin-off of the casino industry. So what's happened is that social casino, as it's grown over the years, it's caught the attention of the offline casino companies. Now, obviously, there are the big ones like Caesars, who were innovative and smart and quick enough to jump into the category by acquiring us. There's MGM, who have a partnership with Play Studios, and there's a few others. But what's happened is that there's a whole second and third tier of offline casino companies that want a piece of the pie. Remember in the slide where we categorized the type of people or the type of companies that have an interest in the industry? So these second and third-tier casino companies, they're not big enough or don't have enough money or don't have the knowledge to enter the social casino niche. So what they're doing is that they're working with companies like the logos you see up on the screen, Green2 Pro, Nix Gaming, FlowPlay, and PlayZeno, and they're going to them and say, please build me a social casino product. So these suppliers, some of them are here actually, and you should go and meet them if you're interested. These suppliers are taking these late bloomers into the market. Okay, so I'm gonna give another forecast. My previous one was wrong, so we'll see about this one. So I don't think B2B is gonna become a large revenue source. I think the amount of attention and focus that these companies can give this category of games is not gonna be enough to really grow the business. But I do think, and I think this is a strategy that they're employing by getting into the category, is they're trying to create value via loyalty. So the assumption that they're working under is the casino players that come to my casino, they want to play some of these games when they're not in the casino. I'll give them a game, I'll brand it under my brand, they already know my brand, they'll be playing my game, and I'll give them some loyalty points. A lot of these casinos have loyalty programs, and this is a way to kind of take the casino home with you. But I do think it'll work for retention and loyalty. I don't think it'll become a large revenue source. Okay, so M&A. So being that we're the most active acquirer in the category, I thought it would be right to talk a little bit about M&A in the social casino niche. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about M&A in the gaming industry. So it's not important that you actually see the numbers on that graph. What I'm trying to show there, if you look at the graph, the green and the red lines show investment volume and M&A volume in the gaming industry over the last years. And the trend is very obvious. There's a lot of consolidation going on in the market. And there were $2.5 billion of M&A transactions in the last 12 months. This is true as of last week. Thank you for DigiCapital for updating me on that. If you don't know them, you should. And that's twice the pace of the previous 12 months. And that's a very obvious trend. The big guys are buying the smaller guys, and it's truly becoming an important part of the industry. In terms of social casino, there were 3 large deals since my last lecture in February. These deals all are substantial. There are a few other deals, but these are the deals that were substantial. The first one was us when we acquired Pacific Interactive, the developers of House of Fun. This is actually a deal that was being signed as we were sitting in Casual Connect Amsterdam, so I couldn't speak about it. I was itching to, but I couldn't. Happened a week or two after Casual Connect. And so we acquired House of Fun, GSN acquired Bash Gaming, I mentioned that before, and then Bally's acquired Dragonplay. This actually happened a couple weeks ago. So each of these deals has a different rationale, some similar and overlapping, but they're all important to understand kind of what's going on in the niche specifically. So a lot of people, when we acquired House of Fun, they said, why are you buying another slots game? You have Slotomania, it's the most popular slots game in the entire category. Why are you buying another slots game? And there are several elements to the rationale of that acquisition. First and foremost, we acquired an amazing team, and that's always, when we do M&A, we're buying talent and passion before we're buying a product and a user base. That's important, and they had an amazing team. Some of them are here today. But why did we buy another slots game? We bought another slots game because we've realized that most of the social casino players are playing more than one slots game at any moment. So they're playing Slotomania, they're playing Double Down, they're playing House of Fun, and they might be playing a few others as well at any given time. And they're spending money in all these apps specifically. So what we wanted to do is expand our product portfolio and say, okay, you're playing Slotomania, but if you want to play another slots game, here's House of Fun. Rather than having them go to a competitor, we want to give them another option. And that's exactly why we bought House of Fun, other than the fact that they have a great product, of course. It's up to standards and to our quality standards in terms of the content. And they also have some amazing technology, which we're going to exploit over the next few years. Okay, GSN and Bash Gaming. This was a deal that started and stopped and started and stopped, and then was finally closed a few months ago. It's a very important deal. This is GSN, who's a very large and mature company with GSN Casino. They're not just a social casino company. They have many games, but they needed to expand their product portfolio. Much like we acquired Bingo Blitz and WSOP from EA, they acquired Bash Gaming in order to add to their product portfolio with the Bingo products. Bally's and Dragonplay, it's a deal from a few weeks ago. Bally's acquired Dragonplay for approximately $100 million, quite a large deal. So Bally's is one of those companies from the offline casino world. They are a slot manufacturer, and they acquired Dragonplay and what we call our Tim from DigiCapital, does a lot of great research on the category, calls it a legacy pivot. And I really like that term. That's really the strategic rationale behind the Bally's Dragonplay deal. This is an old, mature company who's buying itself into the future. By buying Dragonplay, they essentially became a relevant contender in a niche where they couldn't play before. And there's an additional upside for Bally's in Dragonplay. So Dragonplay has some poker products and has some slots products. But in terms, remember we talked about proven content. So Bally's has proven content. That the potential upside of taking that content and put it into the Dragonplay slots is very large. And we'll see over the next coming months what's going to go on with that. Okay, so let's summarize what we've talked about today really quickly. So social casino is an evergreen gaming category which adapted casino games into a non-gambling environment. Important, when you think about social casino, you have to understand that the market forces are a little different than any other category because we didn't invent these games. These are games that have existed for a long time. Okay, so social casino has shown a consistent growth. Like I said before, 5 years ago, this entire $2.6 billion market didn't even exist. And it's taken a non-trivial share of social and mobile gaming. So it's one of the most lucrative gaming categories. Okay, so there are 4 types of companies that dominate the space and that are interested in playing in this social casino niche. These are the slot manufacturers, the offline casinos, the online real money gambling guys, and the social gaming companies. So growth, as we talked about, is going to come from mobile, regional opportunities. I can't stress that enough. The regional opportunity is large. Please talk to me if you have even just an idea, not even a product. We're open to hearing that. It's part of our strategy, and we want to talk to you if you're playing in that space. And of course, in-game optimization. Okay, Asia, I said Asia 100 times in this lecture. I'm going to say it one last time. The opportunity is mind-blowing. I think it's a very important part of the space. It's wide open. I'll be happy to see that kind of turn into a revenue-generating region for the category. Okay, social casino B2B trend. My forecast that it will not be significant in terms of revenues, but rather will be a great retention tool for the offline casinos. And then last but not least, that consolidation continues as social casino revenues will grow, and both the social gaming and the casino giants want a piece of this pie. Okay, so thank you very much for your time. Playtika is constantly looking for opportunities. We're a very entrepreneurial company. If you have an idea, if you have some technology that you think we'll like, if you're selling or selling media that you think can generate some revenue for us, come over to me. I'll be happy to talk. And my email is on the screen, and my Twitter is there. Feel free to contact me after, and I'll open up the floor for a few questions. Thank you very much. No, so actually I can't share the multipliers from our deals. That's stuff that I can't really talk about. But if you go to Google the idea or Google the question, you'll find a lot of kind of best practices and what's going on in the niche. Okay, so I don't know how to, compared to Zynga, I don't know the answer. There's definitely, just like in every social gaming category, there are the whales, the dolphins, and the minnows. We do give extra support to the whales. I think the best way for you to learn about how we do that is become one. And how much will that take? Well, go ahead and spend the money and you'll find out. Branded casino goes. Oh, so it's a trend that's already going on. If you're looking at branded slot machines or branded slot games in total, you'll see we do it, the others do it. The guys who are playing from the offline casino, the slot manufacturers, have been doing branded slot machines for many years. They're bringing that online as well. So the answer is yes. I think there's additional opportunity. The brand equity that comes with certain brands might be a good growth driver or a good way to bring in people into the game. So definitely there's room for brands in social casino. Yeah, let's hope the mic works. We'll see. I can hear you, but not with the mic. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, that's a great question. So you asked, because we are a part of the old or spin-off of the old casino industry, but now it's not a non-gambling environment. How do player motivations differentiate are different than from the offline to the social casino space? So our players come for a very specific reason. They come to be entertained. So we consider ourselves part of the entertainment industry. We compete for the same budget as Universal Studios and HBO, our players do not come to gamble because they can't, and I think that's very different. There are some players who overlap, but it's not a big overlap in our eyes. It's a different segment of players, but our players really come to play a game much like they play Candy Crush. They come to play Slotomania or WSOP Poker. They're coming to be entertained.
This guy back here.
Elad, thanks for that. Two questions. First one is, what do you think is the right range for ad revenues in social casino games?
Okay. When you mean range, what do you mean?
As a percentage of total revenues.
Okay. So the answer is I don't know. We don't do any ads in our games. We keep our games clean of ads. We monetize our users very well. And we feel that from a player perspective, we'd rather keep the games without ads. So I really don't know the answer to that.
Fair enough. Okay. The other question was a more specific one on House of Fun. When you acquired that, did you find that it was a lot of overlap in the users who were monetizing, or were there different users that were monetizing between the two games?
Okay, that's a good question. So there were a little bit of both. There was a new player base there as well. But I think the real differentiator between House of Fun and us, if you're really familiar with the niche and the type of content that goes onto these games, is that House of Fun creates slot machines that are a little more close to the casino floor than Slotomania. Right. Slotomania are a little more fun caricatures, where the House of Fun products or games are actually more like the casino, mimic the casino floor better, and it's a different type of player. Some people enjoy this, some people enjoy this. And I think that's one of their differentiating factors.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry. I just want to pick up on a question a woman asked here about branded slot games. Can you name examples of what kind of brands have used this or are thinking of using this or are going into this? Because I find it a little bit fascinating to be able to connect major brands with these kind of games and offer vouchers, coupons or something as a reward or something, because I'm just trying to see why this can happen faster, because it should be an obvious connection there.
Okay, so the connection that exists right now in terms of brands is that we're branding the category of slot manufacturers and slot creators, social, offline, doesn't matter, are branding slot machines with a specific brand. For example, we acquired the license to use Elvis. We have an Elvis slot machine in Slotomania. We have an Elvis bingo room in Bingo Blitz, and that worked very well for us. we haven't really done proper direct cross promotions with brands. We're actually acquiring licenses for the brand equity. We're paying a licensing fee, but not more than that. Don't forget, so one of the important things to understand about the core slot players and the core bingo players, they're coming for an authentic experience. They're not coming to be sold onto. And that's one of the things that a lot of people need to understand. Many times I meet companies that are trying to do these really innovative match 3 and slot games, or a poker and a slot machine all built into one. And we really don't believe into that. We don't believe in that. The mashups don't work, and because the people want to play authentic games. And the authentic games, that's where I think brands come in. They're great for brand equity, but not more than that, at this point at least. Any other questions?
My turn?
Yeah, go ahead.
Cool. So, being a Las Vegas resident, where do you see some of the trends with some of the newer games? Are you going to start following? I mean, slots is always going to be the leader. We know that. But do you also see like Pai Gow, Baccarat, some of the other table games evolving over time?
That's a great question. So, a lot of people, money in the social casino niche comes from 3 main games. That's slots, bingo, and poker. There are other casino games that are already out in market, but really no one's been able to monetize on a large scale. There's blackjack and roulette, which kind of feel obvious when you think of it, but they're not monetizing. I don't really know why. We've looked at many companies that are in the category, and they haven't been able to scale yet. I don't really have a good answer as to what the psychology is behind them not succeeding at this point. But there's definitely an opportunity there. But until now, nobody's broken it, and many have tried.
Hi, I was just interested in Slotomania in China. We've tried to play your game in China and downloaded it. We've found that it's in English all the way through. On iTunes, we can pay, but on Android, it seems to be, there's like a Facebook login. I was just wondering, is there a reason for this?
Okay.
And it seems to be similar in some of the other territories as well, in Japan and Korea.
Yeah, so we actually haven't localized our mobile games yet. It's on our agenda. It's a very large part of our agenda. Stay tuned to see us kind of improve in that side of the business. But yeah, there's a whole complex world. I don't think it's just about localization. I think it's also about culturalization. We can't just translate the games into the local language and expect them to play. A lot of these so-called emerging markets are potential slot players, but they don't have slots at home. And so it's not a local game for them, so we need to create tutorials. We need to also adapt the games in order to fit the local type of social gaming trends. And so we're working on it. It's very complex. Each country has its own nuances, and it's definitely important to culturalize the game, not just localize it.
So we have one more question, and then we're going to need to wrap it up.
Okay. Any other questions?
So how does Facebook come into play, both from a platform perspective as interaction and social gaming?
In what sense?
Monetization potentially, as well as players connecting with each other, things like that, tournaments, whatever.
Okay, so I'll start with saying that Facebook is one of our most important partners, and we work very closely with Facebook. Facebook has been critical to our growth, critical to the entire category's growth, entire industry's growth, actually. Facebook monetizes very well for us. The social interaction is very relevant. We use their social tools to also in our mobile games, and that's very important. So Facebook's critical, at least in the countries where they have a large penetration. They are probably the best partner to have in terms of the social tools. Great. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for your time.